Okay, so this is episode number 28. Welcome to today's broadcast. We're going to talk about Paul being shipwrecked on the island of Malta, and this is kind of an interesting story. It's quick. It doesn't last very long. The record of it in the Bible, and so this video is not going to be very long. But we do want to talk about the 3 months that they spent on Malta Island because a lot happened. Now, last week, we talked about the voyage, the shipwreck when the ship got there. It had got on rocky waters, and they tried to anchor and wait for daylight, and then they once it became day and they could see a little like a path, a little river inlet there that led into the land. They were able to get the boat in there, and of course the waves were beating on the boat, so they all jumped and swam to shore. And so they're on the island of Malta, and so these natives are going to see them. Of course, it's the midst of the storm, it's still raining, and the natives, obviously they can see what's going on. I mean, some people were about probably in chains, the soldiers were in uniform, and so there was obviously an understanding of who these people were. But the islanders didn't let that bother them. They saw people in need, and they went to help them out. They built a fire and got them warm and dry. And of course, Paul gets bit by a snake. And a couple of things I want to talk about in this episode is really the fickle attitude of humanity, humankind, the way we think. People change their mind so quickly. I mean, at a drop of a hat, it's people people hear something and decide they're going to believe that, and then they hear something 10 minutes later and decide, well, I'm going to believe that. And I can honestly say that I haven't sometimes fallen to that. So it's just kind of the way our minds are made. We'd like to make up our minds quickly and then change them later on. And so we're going to see that in this, and we're also going to see. I want to talk a little bit about the apostolic gifts, the gifts of healing, and things like that. And so we're going to talk. Chapter 28 of Acts is the last chapter. Also, of course, once they leave Malta, they get to Rome, and Rome is where this is all written from. And so there's really no reason to go beyond that record of them arriving in Rome, because they're people they're writing to know what's going on because they've been there. So we're going to go through all that. First, let me look at the timeline. Where's my timeline? Okay, so here we are. Last week we saw Paul leave Caesarea in Israel, and he sailed for Italy. Of course, he got shipwrecked on Malta Island, and so he's going to spend 3 months there, the winter months, and that's where we're at today. And I'm gonna read. I think I'm gonna read the first 6 verses here. Uh, well, Verse 39 talks about this little inlet that they discovered. Verse 27 says, when it was day, they knew not land, and they discovered a creek with a shore in which they were minded if it were possible to thrust in the ship. And so I'm going to let me watch this video, I think, first, and then we'll go ahead and read from chapter 28. So I'm just going to play a minute or so of this, but just I'll point it out as they get through here, okay?
It is believed that this small island, with a statue of Paul just behind me, located about
So right there's that inlet
of the main island, is where they first set foot when they landed. The natives of the island made a fire to warm the wet men, and Paul gathered some branches to add to the fire, and as he did so, a viper fastened onto his arm. Everyone was expecting him to die, but he shook it off as if nothing had happened, further impressing in the minds of those watching that this was no ordinary man. God was watching over him. God had a special work for him to do in Rome, and it wasn't his destiny to die on this small island.
Okay, so let me go back and see if I can find where this was. I think it was right around here. Yeah, you see this little inlet right here? That's what they're talking about in that Bible verse, where they were able to get the boat in between 2 pieces of land. And so of course they all got to the island, some swam, some got on debris. Verse 28 or chapter 28, we're going to read 1 through 6 here. It says, when they were escaped, that was the boat, when they were escaped, and they knew that the island was called Malta, so they escaped to the island. The barbarous people showed us no little kindness, which means they showed them great kindness. For they kindled a fire and received every one of us because the present rain and because it was cold. And when Paul had gathered a bundle of sticks and laid them on the fire, there came a viper out of the heat and fastened to his hand. And when the barbarians saw the venomous beast hang on this hand, they said among themselves, "No doubt this man is a murderer, whom, though he had escaped the sea, yet vengeance suffered not to live." And so this snake bit him. Now, these people all over Europe were multi-god people. I mean, they had, Greek mythology, Roman mythology, Egyptian mythology. You had a lot of gods and goddesses that there was knowledge of the people worship. Of course, Poseidon, the god of the sea. I mean, we talked about a lot of these early on in this Bible study. And these people believed in multiple gods. And I think they thought because this tragedy, a lot of times gods would bring about storms when they were trying to, the people thought that they brought about storms when they were trying to punish people. And so I think the fact that there was a storm, you go back to the book of Jonah when Jonah was on the ship. They cast lots and it fell on Jonah, and he said, "Yeah, I'm the reason for the storm." So it was just kind of known back then that the gods brought storms to punish people, and so they thought, well, surely this storm was brought about to punish someone. And then they saw Paul being bit by the snake and thought, well, this must be the murderous man that is going to die. But he didn't die. Verse 5 says he shook off the beast into the fire and felt no harm. Howbeit they looked, and when he should have swollen or fallen down dead suddenly, but after that they looked a great while and saw no harm come to him, and they changed their minds and said that he was a god. So he went from being a devilish demon that deserved death to being a god just like that within a few minutes. They looked, he got bit by the snake and they watched for him to die. And when he did not start swelling up and fall over dead, they decided he was a god. It went from that drastic. He's a devil, he's a god. I mean, no in between. And that's kind of similar to what happened, back in Lystra when he got stoned early on in his first missionary journey. He had a similar thing there. Uh, so they changed their mind, and that goes through verse 6. But after that, I think people start realizing he's just a man that was a special man. And of course, God had him here. God's preparing the way for Paul to get to Rome, is what he's doing. And so all these Roman soldiers are seeing Paul perform these miracles. And so a lot of this is for that purpose. Uh, Verse 7 says, in the same quarters were possessions of the chief man of the island, whose name was Publius. He received him and lodged for 3 days. It came to pass that his father lay sick of fever and a bloody flux, which may be malaria, to whom Paul entered in and prayed, laid his hands on him, and healed him. And when it was done, others also which had diseases in the island came and were healed, who were honored with many honors, and departed. And they laded us with such things as were necessary. So they basically provided all of their needs. And after 3 months, we departed in a ship of Alexandria, which had wintered in the isle, whose sign was Castor and Pollux. And so they were there for 3 months, and basically all the focus and attention was on Paul as he was healing and spreading the gospel. And so that's that. Now, in regards to this healing stuff, I'm going to do a couple videos this fall. One I'm going to do specifically about apostolic gifts, because I do think that the apostles have special gifts that other people don't have. I think the apostles were called for a special reason to lay the foundation of the church. That's why I believe this. But I also think that there's people in the world today that claim to have certain gifts that maybe they don't, and people are deceptive and people get caught up in some of this. And so I was going to share with you some things. Now, if you go to Matthew chapter 7, I want to look at 3 verses here, verse 21, 22, and 23. Now, verse 21, Jesus talks about doing the will of his Father, okay? In verse 23, he talks about those who practice lawlessness. And so you have this idea. This is kind of like a sandwich. You have on the top, you have those who do the will of the Father, and those on the bottom, you have those who practice lawlessness. And in between, you have activities that people are doing. Okay. And so here's what this says. And I'll just read verse 21 says, "Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter into the kingdom of heaven, only he who does the will of my Father. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name? Have we not cast out demons in your name? Have we not done many wonders in your name?" All of these things they're doing in Jesus' name. But are they doing them in the will of the Father, or are they doing them to practice lawlessness? He says in verse 23, "I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness." So there are some that are doing this in the name in the will of the Father, but there are others that are doing this to practice lawlessness. Okay, so prophesying, we're going to talk about, like preaching or speaking in tongues, whatever, casting out demons, and doing many wonders. Here you can add in the gift of healings. In this modern day theology of signs and wonders, I want to do a second video too about the misteachings that people teach out there about the health, wealth, prosperity doctrine, because that's the doctrine really that is focused on these mystic signs and gifts that they think that certain people have in modern day. Now, I want to go to Mark chapter 16, and this is a passage that Mark's using, and I want to look at this because here we're looking at verse 17 is talking about these signs. Okay. And so you have uh casting out devils right here, casting out devils, speaking in new tongues, which prophesying and things like that. And you also have laying hands on the sick, so doing other wonders. And so I don't know what I did here. I lost my place, but okay. So find this again, 7. Okay, so you have the same things here, prophesying in your name, casting out demons, and doing wonders. And so here you have the same thing. But this is saying, "Go into the world, preach the gospel to every creature. He that believeth and is baptized will be saved, but he that believeth not shall be damned. And these signs shall follow them that believe. In my name they will cast out devils, they will speak in new tongues, and they will lay hands on the sick." But look at this, they will also take up serpents, they will drink deadly things and not be hurt. These modern prosperity preachers don't teach this. They have the ability to heal and do stuff like that, but you won't see them drinking antifreeze. You won't see them messing around with snakes. And I'm not saying that snake charming cults are a good thing. I don't think they're legitimate. I'd stay away from them. But if somebody really has these powers to uh, cast out devils and speak in these tongues and heal people, if they really have these powers, then they're also protected from things like serpents and drinking deadly things. And I don't think you see it in modern day. I think this really was these were gifts that were assigned to the apostles of the first century, and once they died off, nothing else really mattered. But I will talk more about that in the fall in those two Bible studies. The one I'm going to talk about that prosperity doctrine, and one I'm going to talk about apostolic gifts. And so more to come on that. But uh, as far as our Bible study goes, they have left uh, Malta Island now, and they are headed to Rome. And of course, we just have this little bit of time to go here to get to Rome and chapter 28. So we'll finish that up next week. And then we're going to see a lot of activity in Rome as people start coming to visit Paul, and Paul starts to write letters to people in response to the visits. And of course, you have Luke and Mark that are writing accounts, I think, for Paul's defense, and you also have other things being written at this time. The book of Hebrews is written at this time. Of course, Paul's writing to Timothy and to Titus, and so just a lot is going on while he's in Rome. So we'll pick it up there next week. I hope you enjoyed this. We'll see you next time. God bless you.